The world thinks it knows Yemen.
War, Hunger, Zorro.
But what if that's only half the story? What if there's another Yemen? One not in the news, but in stone, prayer, and hidden places. A land where cities rise from clay, mountains hold ancient stories. This isn't the Yemen you've heard of. Sacred, surreal, and full of memory. Some places are so strange, so untouched, they don't feel like Earth. This is one of them, just 155 miles off Yemen's coast. Cradled by the Arabian Sea lies Socotra, an island so surreal it belongs more to myth than to geography. How did such a world come to be? Centuries of isolation turned Socotra into a biological time capsule. More than a third of its plant life is found nowhere else on Earth. The most famous? The dragon's blood tree. Its name is ancient Dracaena cinnabari, but most call it the dragon's blood tree. Rising like an umbrella from a forgotten sky, it spreads its limbs over the windswept Dixon Plateau, where clouds skim low and silence clings to stone. Socotra's people say these trees grew from dragon blood, fallen in a battle older than history. Each cut still weeps red, a resin used to heal, paint, and summon protection from spirits. But the tree's shape isn't just myth. In this misty highland, water is scarce, and the dragon's blood drinks from the air. It catches fog on its wide crown, turning tiny mist drops into the water. It needs to survive. Some say these trees have stood for centuries, and when the wind rustles their crowns, the old ones whisper. It's the sound of something ancient still alive. But Socotra isn't only stone and silence. On the far west coast lies Shoa Beach, sand so pure it looks untouched by time. No road leads there, only the sea, and sometimes as if summoned. Dolphins swim beside the boat. Locals say it's a good omen. When dolphins appear, the sea will be generous. The nets will be full, and the wind will stay kind. Fishermen still set out at dawn, nets repaired by hand, songs old as the tide. Before each journey, they light fires on the beach, not for warmth, but for blessing. Here, the sea is a living spirit. Marib. If Socotra remembers nature, Marib is where memory turns to stone. In Yemen's desert, where heat shimmers and wind carries forgotten hymns, lie the remains of a temple buried for over 2,000 years. Mahram Bilkis, the temple of the moon god, and the sacred heart of the ancient Saba kingdom. Today, archaeologists call it the Buran Temple, a name grounded in science yet echoing with myth. Seven massive pillars rise from the dust, weathered but defiant, as if still holding up a grand story. Locals call it the Temple of the Queen of Sheba, the legendary ruler who, according to scripture and folklore, traveled far to meet King Solomon. Legend or truth, her memory lingers in these stones. Tradition says this was a gateway between mortal and divine. Incense burned day and night, priests watched the moon like a clock. Ancient Sabian script still traces the walls, bearing witness to a civilization built on trade, not war. For over 2,000 years, sand hid this temple's secrets. Excavations began last century to reveal its grandeur. Each unearthed column returned a piece of the story. And still, the wind moves through the ruins like an ancient voice. She may be a legend, the moon god forgotten, but these stones still remember. Stand among the pillars at dusk and feel time unfasten. The air tastes of salt and resin, as if ancient caravans just passed. Shadows stretch across carved stones like ghostly prayers, and silence hums with ancient energy. Here, myth and history are inseparable. Every grain of sand a fragment of a kingdom that studied stars, to trade with the world. But memory doesn't always need stone to survive. Sometimes it holds on through mud and hands, passed down not in scripture but in how walls are rebuilt, and prayers whispered before the rains. And before us is Hayd al-Jazil, a village clinging to rocks, clinging to life, clinging to a giant monolith in Wadi Dawan. Hayd al-Jazil looks less built, and more grown from the earth. From afar, its sand-colored homes, stacked like coral, perched atop a massive rock. No grand gates, no roads, just silence, cliffs, and survival. Made of mud, brick, and stone, the village has stood for centuries, exposed to floods, time, and isolation. Built high to avoid floods and to watch for invaders. Here, walls are shields. Straw and memory are kneaded into the mud, shaped by hand year after year. Every crack holds a story, every roof, a prayer for another dry season. Survival breathes in details. Wooden beams from rare palms, doors carved with patterns. With narrow windows for shade, not views. As evening falls, the town glows like baked clay, a soft ember on dark cliffs, and a call to prayer echoes, rising like a thread between earth and sky. They say this valley remembers those who dared to live here. Life here continues through quiet, daily actions, mixing mud, mending walls, trusting the earth to last. In this rhythm of survival is a lasting truth, resilience, lived daily in a forgotten land. In a valley of dust and stone, where towns rise for trade or war, one town rises, for prayer. From above, Tarim shines like a vision, a white desert town, wrapped in silence and sun. The sacredness isn't from the white walls. So many mosques whisper God's name. Over 360 mosques for a town you can walk across in a morning. Why so many? Some believe the town was founded by people who came here not to conquer. They were scholars, mystics, and pilgrims who followed the scent of incense and stayed for the Quran. For centuries, Tarim has been Yemen's center, where sons of desert tribes became imams and fathers sent their children to the mosque, not the market, especially the Al-Minaret, rising over 160 feet into the dry desert sky, built entirely from sun-baked mud brick. No steel, no cement, only clay, sunlight. Inside, the rhythm of recitation still echoes, soft, steady, eternal. But Tarim is more than its mosques. It's a city where every corner is a library, where ancient manuscripts are still read by candlelight, and family lines trace back to the Prophet's companions. The streets outside are quiet, almost weightless. At dusk, the call to prayer rises, but what follows is softer. The sound of remembrance woven into silence. Even the markets move with restraint. Spices, dates, and simple goods laid out as if business itself bows to devotion. Travelers say Tarim feels less like a town and more like an open sanctuary, a place where faith blends into daily life, with no line between sacred and ordinary. Yet, for all its piety, Tarim isn't stuck in the past. Its scholars travel the Islamic world, bringing Yemen's spiritual legacy to Cairo, Damascus, while the town itself stays anchored in the valley, unchanged at its core for centuries. Here, under the desert sun, time feels. Not all cities are built to conquer space. Tarim is one of those rare places built to go inward, into memory, into the eternal hush of faith. Why is it just sun-dried mud, stacked 9 stories high? In the desert, Shibam stands as if the sand itself learned to build. Often called the Manhattan of the desert, that name only hints at its height, not the stories and centuries within. Rising straight from the desert floor, Shibam isn't carved into mountains or nestled by cliffs, tower after tower of sun-dried mud, like a clay forest. For over 5 centuries, these towers have endured time, floods, and war, held not by stone, but by hands, memory, the quiet duty of care. In Shibam, keeping the buildings up means keeping the past alive. Staircases coil tightly between mud walls like veins through narrow, shaded, and cool, built to survive heat without electricity. Each building leans slightly towards the next, sharing shade, creating a dense geometry, like a desert fortress of breath and balance. It was designed to last, and after 500 years, the walls are still valuable. From the rooftops, the Hadramaut Valley opens wide across the desert. Once a vital route for frankincense and myrrh caravans linking Arabia to the Mediterranean. At sunrise, the towers catch the light in soft gold. At dusk, they darken to the color of the desert floor, blending back into the earth. Here, every step reveals living architecture, fragile in earth. A city preserved by steady hands, refusing to let it vanish. To outsiders it may look fragile, Yet for centuries this fragile city has stood against floods and storms that erased other towns. Its survival is quiet defiance, proof that mud, shaped by faith and devotion, can out what Shibam built to last, Sion built to rule. Same land, same hands, but a different dream. Not survival, but splendor. A palace not carved in marble, but pressed from mud, painted white and made to rule. This is Sion Palace, the largest structure in Hadramaut. Its towers rise like frozen waves over the town, their facades bright against the dull gold of the desert. Built entirely from sun-dried mud bricks washed in white lime, it was once the political and administrative heart of the Kthiri Sultanate, a kingdom now gone but never quite erased. From a distance it looks unreal, just bold vertical monumental shapes. Inside light glides along arched corridors and painted. Today, the palace is a museum, holding the region's memory in glass and silence. But within its walls, you can still feel the rhythm of footsteps once hurried by politics, rituals, and royal days long vanished. In the central hall, shadows stretch long across tiled floors, as if reluctant to leave. It doesn't breathe like something alive. It endures like something sacred, not just a palace, but a memory of power, still held in walls that refuse to forget. Yet Sion Palace is more than its size and splendor. Within its rooms lie traces of royal decrees signed in haste, of banquets held under lantern light, of decisions that shaped the valleys beyond its walls. Every balcony once looked down on processions. Every staircase once bore the weight of rulers who turned mud into majesty. Even now, step into its courtyards and feel a silent. The museum displays weapons, jewelry, manuscripts, fragments of a kingdom preserved not in, but in fragile objects of everyday rule. The whitewashed walls, though weathered by sun and sand, still gleam faintly, as if unwilling to surrender their dignity. Sion Palace stands not just as a monument, but as testimony that even kingdoms built from earth and lime. Sion Palace is a monument, proof that kingdoms of earth and lime can project power strong enough to echo across centuries. The white walls of Sion fade behind you, their quiet grandeur dissolving into the amber haze of the Haraz Mountains, and ahead the land rises in jagged folds of stone. Here, where the echoes of power have faded, survival tells a sharper story, cliffs of raw rock and homes that feel grown, not built, rising from the mountain's bone. High in this rugged range, Al-Hajara clings to a cliff like a vision carved from stone, its houses gripping the mountainside as if gravity had been deceived. From afar, the village seems to sprout from the rock, defying storms, earthquakes, and centuries of erosion. How hundreds of years ago did people fasten entire homes to sheer rock walls without modern tools? The answer is a marriage of ingenuity and environment. Each house was built from hand-cut stone, stacked without mortar yet locked so precisely that the walls have endured for over 3 centuries. Natural ledges became foundations, creating interlocking structures that absorb tremors and resist landslides, Thick stone keeps interiors cool in the burning summer and warm through icy nights while narrow. Alleys channel mountain breezes like natural ventilation. Every block was hauled up steep, twisting trails by human strength alone. A feat of endurance that mirrors the resolve of families who chose to live at such heights. From within, the village feels like a labyrinth. Stairways climbing between terraces, doorways carved directly into rock, and rooftops that double as paths to the next house. Life unfolds vertically, stitched tightly to the stone. Generations here have measured time not by calendars but by seasons of rain and harvest. Their lives paced by the mountain itself. Stronger than modern concrete, Al-Hajara's vernacular architecture stands as proof that beauty and permanence can rise from the harshest landscape when human skill and nature meet. And as dusk settles, the village glows in muted amber. Merging with the cliffs until it seems less a place made by people, and more a vision the mountain itself chose to keep. The trail winds deeper into the Haraz Mountains, where ridges rise like blades from the earth. And the air grows thinner, laced with the scent of stone and sky. Locals call this realm Jabal Haraz, the stairway to heaven, a name earned not by myth, but by the sight of entire mountainsides carved into green ascending steps. From afar, the terraces rise in endless tiers, each one cut by hand to catch the rare rains and cradle fields of grain and cot. Villages perch along the ridgelines, their stone houses linked by narrow paths that cling to the mountain's skin, winding like veins of life between the clouds. Here, farming is an act of precision and defiance. Generations have shaped these terraces from sheer rock, stacking walls of dry stone to hold fragile soil, coaxing food from land that should offer none. Water, coaxed from passing mists and brief mountain storms, is hauled upward by hand and tucked into secret cisterns. At dawn, the mountains breathe in silver light and the terraces awaken in a hush, broken only by the slow trickle of hidden streams. In this suspended world, stone walls hold not just soil, but centuries of patience, each terrace a quiet pact between earth and sky. From above, the terraces ripple across the slopes like green waves frozen mid-motion. Each curve a signature of human persistence etched into the mountain. Life here is measured in steps, climbing from one terrace to the next. Even the smallest details reflect adaptation. Homes built with thick stone walls to anchor against winds. Roofs that double as drying racks for harvest. Cisterns carved deep into rock to guard precious rainwater. Jabal Haraz feels less like farmland than a dream of balance, where gravity seems to fluctuate and the mountains flow seamlessly into the endless sky. The road drops from the highlands into a plain of heat and silence, where the ruins of Zabid emerge like a faded script on the earth. Once a luminous center of Islamic learning, the city now stands half-erased, its ancient walls crumbling beneath the weight of salt winds and neglect. Centuries ago, Zabid was home to more than 80 madrasas, where theology, science, and art were debated by oil lamplight. Its scholars shaped thought across the Arabian Peninsula, and its streets once pulsed with the cadence of Quranic recitation and the shuffle of students' sandals. Today, the city remains a UNESCO World Heritage Site, Yet it is also listed as endangered, its labyrinth of alleys slowly surrendering to time. Fragments of carved plaster cling to leaning door frames, and narrow stone paths lead past walls where calligraphy has blurred into dust. In hidden courtyards, a few schools still teach the Quran beneath roofs of palm fronds, their soft chants rising against the quiet decay. In those moments, it feels as if time folds in on itself, the present dissolving into the past. When lamps once flickered against the same plaster walls and voices carried through these very alleys. Zabid feels less deserted than quietly suspended, as if the wisdom it once guarded still murmurs within the fractured walls, waiting for a mind willing to listen. The old market square, now nearly empty, still bears traces of trade. Faded niches in the walls where spices were stored. Shadows of awnings that once sheltered scholars and merchants. The silence here is not emptiness, but a palimpsest of centuries. Here the enduring truth remains. Knowledge is never truly lost. It fades only when those entrusted with its care let the echoes of memory slip into quiet oblivion. And so Zabid remained, no longer the vibrant city it once was, but as a fragile manuscript etched in clay, whispering that wisdom is never erased by time, only waiting for those who will read its silence. If in Zabid knowledge can be forgotten, then Nabi Hud reminds us, faith never really disappears. High above the valleys of Hadramaut, where the land lifts into cliffs and the wind never rests. A lone white shrine clings to the slope. Not grand, not loud, but it is always there. This is the Nabi Hud shrine. Here, they say, lies the prophet Hud, the man who warned the people of Ad and whose name lives on in the Quran. The story is old. So old it slips between scripture and sand, but the belief has endured. Every year pilgrims come here, walking for miles across barren lands. They climb the slope barefoot. Some leave stones, some weep. No fancy stuff, just a simple tomb with white plaster. Its dome catches the last light, like the sun fading. A narrow stair, a stone path, and silence so deep you can hear yourself breathe. It feels full of respect, of memories, of something ancient, even when no one's around. During the yearly visit, families camp in simple tents in the valley. They light small fires that glow against the dark cliffs. Prayers rise into the night air, mixing with the wind, until the whole mountain seems to hum with their faith. Sellers show up with water, dates, and incense. Their voices carry over the stone paths, reminding us of the old trade routes that used to run through Hadramaut. At sunrise, the first light hits the white dome, making it a bright signal for miles, showing not strength but lasting power. During the yearly visit, families camp in simple tents in the valley. They light small fires that glow against the dark cliffs. Prayers rise into the night air, mixing with the wind until the whole mountain seems to hum with their faith. Sellers show up with water, dates, and incense. Their voices carry over the stone paths, reminding us of the old trade routes that used to run through Hadramaut. At sunrise, the first light hits the white dome, making it a bright signal for miles, showing not strength but lasting power. No one's sure if Prophet Hud is buried here. Maybe that's not the main thing. In places like this, faith doesn't need proof. Just come feel the magic and sacredness. So maybe what matters isn't what's under the stones, but what still moves above them. North of Sana'a, where hills start to roll and the wind feels cooler, a palace stands, not beside a rock, but from it. This is Dar Al-Hajara, the Rock Palace, a royal summer home from the 1700s, but the rock it's on is much older. It doesn't sit on a cliff. It is the cliff, a 5-story building built on and into a huge rock pillar, as if the mountain itself decided to become the building. From far away it looks unreal. Arched windows, fancy balconies, and terraces flowing right from the bare rock. Get closer. It's not just beautiful, it's smart. Built for a reason and to work well. Made for living, not just for looks. Built with stone blocks and with a natural spring inside, Dar al-Hajara kept cool and peaceful. A genius design long before the term existed. Inside, winding stairs go up through the stone. Each floor has different light and shadow, as if time itself slows to admire the building. Every curve, every hallway, every carved spot shows a balance of heat and light, of quiet and life. Dar al-Hajara is more than a king's palace. It's a memory in the land, showing that real power doesn't always need to be loud. Sometimes it just needs to last forever. Stories say the rock was seen as sacred even before the palace, a place for old meetings and quiet prayers. Building on it wasn't about taking over, but continuing, connecting royal life to something already respected. Even now, the palace's spring still gives water to villagers, showing Dar al-Hajara was never just a royal escape, but a life source, an oasis, a sanctuary carved in stone. Against the hills, it looks less like a building and more like a dream. A palace from rock, lasting as rock, and meant to outlast its rulers. At over 7,500 feet, where the air is thin, Sana'a rises like a dream made of mud, stone, and memory. From above, a city of brown and white like gingerbread, shaped over centuries. Every roof a silent wish, every alley a line of living poetry. This is one of the oldest cities always lived in, but it doesn't brag about its age. It wears it quietly in the colorful, stained glass windows that catch the morning light. In the delicate plaster designs that decorate its walls like fancy stitching, its buildings are unique. Tall homes made of brick and volcanic rock, trimmed in white plaster, stacked like a library of old souls. Each building seems to lean in a bit, like elders talking under a sky the color of burnt copper. Time moves differently here, not straight ahead, but in circles in the call to prayer, in cups of spiced coffee passed around. Walking through Sana'a isn't just moving through space, but through layers of warm memories still echoing in the walls. Even as modern life creeps in, the old city stays. Because here, history lives in walls, in windows, in quiet greetings across narrow streets. It lives with the past, not as something far away, but as a presence moving quietly through doorways, and rising each morning with the prayer. From tall, slim towers, the call to prayer floats over the roofs, weaving through colored glass until the city seems to breathe with its people. Inside the old houses, carved wooden doors hide cool courtyards with trickling fountains and vines reaching for the light, giving family. Even today, despite wars and big changes, Sana'a keeps its character. It survives not just as a UNESCO site, but as a living city, a place where the past doesn't sleep in ruins, but walks openly with the present. In a city built from mud and memories, one building still listens most to the echoes of time. At the quiet center of Sana'a, where streets narrow and shadows stay long, stands a mosque, so old it feels carved into the city's memory. This is the Great Mosque of Sana'a, thought to be built in the 7th century during Prophet Muhammad's life, and though the dates might be fuzzy legends, the stones have been remembered. There's no big show here, no gold, no tall towers, just white walls, soft arches, and a silence so deep, even the light is quiet. Sunlight filters through carved wooden screens, touching pages older than empires, handwritten Quran pages, kept in a library where parchment is brittle like dried leaves, and faded writing fades into breath. Inside, there's no sense of time passing, and script can fade into dust. Inside, you can't tell time is passing. It lingers in the smooth stone floors, worn by centuries of prayer, in the quiet air between prayers, in how people move not rushed, but with remembrance. BFTV 2021. This great mosque wasn't built for show. It was meant to last, to carry centuries with quiet strength, to keep its sacredness. And maybe that's the mosque's quiet power. It doesn't aim to be a monument. It stands still, as if hearing every prayer whispered through the ages. Here, God isn't in grandeur but in quiet, not spoken but felt. In the stillness within. Stories say pieces of the oldest Qurans kept here were hidden, in the walls found centuries later by chance, as if the building knew when to share its secrets. Scholars, mystics, and travelers have passed through its arches, their names forgotten, but their footsteps remain, marked in stone smoothed by centuries of faith. The mosque isn't just a place to enter, but to find a silence that moves the soul to reverence. So, after over 1,000 years, the Great Mosque of Sana'a is still what it was intended to be, not a symbol of power, but a vessel for prayer, where silence speaks louder than stone. In a city where minarets define the skyline and the call to prayer sets the daily rhythm, few would guess an ancient Christian site lies hidden under the dust. Al-Khalis Church, a name mostly forgotten, but once spoken with awe, like a secret too precious to lose. Built in the 6th century under Ethiopian rule, it was planned to be the grandest cathedral in all of southern Arabia. Marble was brought from Constantinople. Mosaics sparkled like stars on the ceiling. Some said it matched the churches of Byzantium. Time doesn't pick favorites, and faith, like empires, changes. Today, little of Al-Khalis remains above ground. Fragments, a broken arch, scattered stones, faint outlines of Greek crosses on the plaster. But underground, archaeologists have unearthed its history. Mosaic floors, floral designs, colored glass still in the shadows, as if beauty, once here, refused to disappear completely. Past travelers wrote of its splendor, of gold-plated doors and lamps that burned constantly, filling the main hall with continuous light. To them, Al-Khalis wasn't just a church, but proof that belief could shine, even from the desert's heart. In a land so defined by Islam, the existence of this church feels almost legendary. But it was real, and for a short time it was magnificent, a place of worship that existed before the minarets, that prayed before the adhan was first heard in Sana'a. No services are held here now, no incense, no hymns. The silence itself has become its final ritual, a hymn of absence that still echoes through the broken stones. Even in ruin, the space feels sacred, not to one faith, but to the idea of the sacred itself. In the silence, what remains is not clashing beliefs, but the echo of something older. that faith takes many forms, and sometimes the ruins of one faith don't erase, but broaden our understanding of history, reminding us that Sana'a was once a meeting point for devotion, and that the sacred has always been bigger than any single voice. From an island far away to the heart of Sana'a, the journey through Yemen is more than just travel on a map. It's also a journey through memories, faith, and resilience. If every land is a whisper, Yemen is the chorus of time, low, deep, and endless. If Yemen feels both strange and familiar, like a forgotten dream, leave a comment. If journeys like this interest you, like the video, share, and subscribe to True Horizons to join us on our travels.